Hello and welcome back to a very special episode of the Eden Road podcast. Today I'm joined by Clayton. Clayton, how you doing, mate?
Well, thank you.
Jordan is also here tonight. Jordan, you're good, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
And we're delighted to be joined by former Brentford captain Jonathan Douglas. Jonathan joined Brentford in 2011 and went on to make 169 appearances for the club, helping us to promotion in 2014. Jonathan, absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. Thank you for taking the time to come on the pod.
Oh, no problem at all. It's lovely to meet you all. I'm looking forward to it.
Lovely. Before we get going, we've got every guest on the podcast to tell us their funniest Brentford story. And basically, at the end of the season, we're going to rank them all into a little top five. We were actually discussing the squad from your time at Brentford with Natalie when she came on the pod. And she told us that there's definitely some funny stories from that group of players. So I'll let you have a think about it. Unless you can come up with one just off the cuff, we can come back to it at the end of the episode.
I'll have to think about it because it could be a bit... a couple of stories could be a bit dodgy, so I'll have to think about it. It was a good group, though. Great bunch of lads. So it was, there's definitely might be a couple of good funny stories from it.
Perfect. Okay. When we've had guests on in the past, we haven't opened up questions to our audience, but this time we've sent a couple of tweets out, posted on the Griffin Park Grapevine, and we got loads of responses. So we've got loads of questions from online, and we'll get to those. But first of all, we've just got a few that we wanted to ask ourselves. So, Jonathan, you came to the club at a time when we'd kind of established ourselves as a League One team. When you came to Brentford, were the ambitions of the club set out to you from the very start?
I think I met Uwe Rosler and Mark Warburton, both of them in a hotel in London. So I had a couple of other options to sign with other teams, but just whenever I spoke to Uwe Rosler, I think, and Mark Warburton, and what they were saying about the club and the direction that they wanted to go in, and Matthew Benham coming in as well, who's a lifetime fan, and I found it very, very interesting. And when you go to the training ground for the first time, it's a tough sell. Obviously, it's a lot different now with the new training ground, but back then it wasn't much. But you just got to speak to Uwe, who was unbelievable. He was just so meticulous. Just everything had to be done right. His standards had to be set very high, and that was something that I really, really wanted. And as soon as I met them too, and I was happy to to sign.
Nice. In your first season at the club, you were named Supporters Player of the Year. It was quite a strong start and end to the season, but obviously wasn't quite enough to be in the mix for promotion that time round. But were there signs in your first season that the following season that you could be onto something good?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, we had two good parts to it. Pity that the middle one didn't live up to the other two. But personally, for me, I was quite happy. That. We had a decent footing in the league, a decent start myself personally. It was probably the first time in about, I'd say, 6 years that I wasn't involved in a playoff or playoff final. So it was actually nice to get a longer break, if I'm honest with you. So I knew that if we added a couple of, I think Clayton Donaldson came the same time as me. So I knew that if we added some quality season after that, we have the the basis of a good side.
So I think the next season, I don't know if I'm speaking for these two, but I think the next season is probably one of the first that I remember quite vividly, just because obviously it was a promotion push and we were winning most of the games. Some amazing memories from that season. Obviously, also probably some of the worst memories that I have as a Brentford fan. The good ones though, Chelsea at home in the cup. I remember Sheffield United away. That was a crazy game. Some great players in that team: Adam Forshaw, Tom Adeyemi, Tony Craig, etc. From the players that we gained, did you and the players kind of know that this was the year that we could do something?
You just had to look at on the training ground. We had a good. We just mentioned there before. The team off the field was incredible, like the team spirit, and we knew that everybody was pulling for one another. And as you say, we just knew that going on to the field 9 times out of 10, we'd probably get a win. And as you say, unfortunately, at the end of that season, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to happen. But I think still that was a good learning experience for us, and it brought us into the following year. And luckily we actually got something out of the end of it.
Yeah, you touched on it briefly there. What was that game? Well, firstly Doncaster and then Yeovil, but what were those two games like? That's the craziest finish to a football match. I think it kind of got overshadowed by the fact that Leicester and Watford was in the same season. So when I talk to people about Doncaster Brentford, they're like, they don't even know that it's happened. And it was like, we're happy. The same thing happened a bit earlier on. What was that like?
Yeah, well, I think we were pushing for goals, Doncaster. So, my goal scoring record isn't the greatest. So I was actually taken off at that stage. So I was actually on the bench whenever, Per Trotz missed a penalty, and then they went down the field. And I actually played with Billy Painter as well. So at Swindon. So yeah, we were very, very disappointed. And then we had to pick ourselves up for the the semi-final and then the final. And I just unfortunately we didn't play the way we should have played in the final, and we got beat.
Yeah, you touched on it. Just the whole Trotter penalty situation. Was it a case of what did you guys say to him afterwards to pick him up? Obviously, he took the penalty off Kev. What was said to him in the dressing room afterwards? Were there any angry exchanges, or was it mainly
of course, there is angry exchanges. You just think that Kev should have took it. He was a penalty taker, and Trotz fancied it, and 9 times out of 10 he'd score that. But it just wasn't to be, and you got to give him a lot of credit. He owned up and came back the next season, and they've done well for us as well.
Out of that squad, who would you say was your player's player out of that team that almost got promoted and then went up the following year?
I really liked. I thought Clayton Donaldson was excellent. I thought. I know he didn't play too many times up through the middle. He was sort of out wide the odd time as well, and I just thought he was excellent, and I was not disappointed because I knew that he was going to go on to probably earn a little bit more money, or go to he went to Birmingham after that maybe. So they're in the Championship. So I was just disappointed that he left, because I thought that if we had him, and then we'd Andre Gray coming in, and then Scott Hogan coming in, and I just think if we had them in that year, especially the first year in the Championship where we got to the semi-final, I thought that we could have actually went all the way. But I'd say Clayton Donaldson was, especially the first couple of seasons I was there, I just thought he was, on his day, he's unstoppable.
Yeah, great name as well. Namesake with myself. Coming on to maybe one of the other players that maybe partnered you in midfield, or we were talking a bit earlier about Tamani, and kind of, I think he was at Brentford when you joined, so you probably played quite a lot with him. There was kind of that period, I think we're skipping forward to the first season in the Championship. He kind of just turned into this different player. He was always solid, great midfielder, but he just turned into a completely different player in that Championship season, and kind of was a big driving factor getting into those playoffs. Did you see a change in him? What drove that?
I don't know if I've seen a change. I just thought, I knew from the offset that he was a good player. Played against him a few times as well, so he's got these big long legs where as a midfielder you think you have him, and then all of a sudden you don't, and he skips by you and for a big man he's got unbelievable feet. I just think he had, whenever I first think he went out on loan, and then he came back, and he's sort of like I started as the sitter, and sitting deep and trying to get on it, and then when he came and he got involved more, he sat, and it gave me the license to get forward. And I think me, him, and Pritch or Judgy or whoever was in the three of us in the middle, really gelled well together, and that was because we knew he was tightening it up at the back for us, along with obviously the back four, and he was a big part of what we did. And he was an exceptional player, and I think it only showed that I suppose the better and the harder league it was, the better he became, because that's the player he was.
I think we've skipped forward to that first season in the Championship, but looking back to the promotion season again as well, obviously you talked about Warburton being there at the start when you met Uwe. What was it like, first of all, when Uwe went to Wigan and Warburton took over? Because we went on that. Then after that, we went on that superb 19-game unbeaten run, and then also the season afterwards. Obviously, in the February, the whole story began to break about Warburton leaving at the end of the season. How did that sort of affect the dressing room? And did you sort of see gradually the move towards the analytical approach coming in that season, or was it all sort of put on hold until the summer?
So Warbs coming in was it was a bit of a shock. Obviously, he was sporting director, and Uwe left. Obviously, everybody's disappointed. We were going well under him, and for him to leave, he thought it was a better opportunity for him. I'm not sure if you spoke to him now, whether it was, we moved probably too quickly. Warbs came in and he done really well. He was a great coach. Obviously, he was, played himself, and I know he retired when he was younger. He was in Watford, being, in the academy as well. So he knew how to speak to people. He knew how to treat boys. He knew how to get the best of them. And I think that showed. And whenever the news did break, and come, as you say, February, I didn't know when it was at. But we were all disappointed. But we knew, that he didn't want to be, there anymore. But at the end of the day, we worked so hard, and he's worked so hard for us. And our main objective was to get promotion. And I don't think it stopped us or in any way of getting promoted with him leaving. I think we had a group of lads that were all driven, and he was the main one that was driving us to get promoted, because at the end of the day, you go to the Premier League, it's financially it's great, and for the club it's great, and he'd always tell us all about that. This could be important for your family, in a few years' time and stuff like that. There, he was always, probably because he was in the banking, so he was always telling you about bonuses and money and doing this, and if you do that, if you achieve this, and that drove us on.
I think me and Jordan were talking about it yesterday, about sort of, we just came up against Borough that seemed to be our kryptonite that season. We couldn't beat them, and I think me and Jordan said yesterday, if we'd have got any other team in the playoffs that season, we probably would have gone up. Well, what was it about that Borough team that just seemed just impenetrable?
They were just solid, really solid. That I think they stopped Toombs from playing, which, if I'm honest, and Toombs is our, the gel. Basically, he gets it off the back four, the keeper, and he's sort of steps it off from there. And anytime we had their ball, the two centre forwards would drop deep, stop the room for the midfield, like Pritch getting in little pockets or Judgy getting in little pockets, and we just found it very hard to break them down. And they had Patrick Brentford up front, scores goals, and we knew that when we got Middlesbrough in the semi-final, we thought we could have done with somebody else, because as you say, there was a team that we just couldn't break down. Or I think if we had got Norwich that season, who I think they went on and won the playoffs, I think if we got them over two legs, we might have beat them, because I think we done well away from home to them. I know they changed manager since that, but with Alex Neil coming in, but I just think Middlesbrough just had our number that season.
I think you mentioned Alex Pritchard. Are you slightly surprised just about how the way, not his career's stagnated, but I always remember watching when Pritchard came in, and I always remember thinking this guy's going to go on to big things. What would you put that down to?
Yeah, probably everything really. Maybe I know he picked up a few injuries, and if he moved around a little bit, probably didn't get settled. He's doing well now at Sunderland. Still playing at a high level. But I know what you're saying. You'd see that he should be playing, probably in the Premier League week in, week out. I just don't know. Maybe injuries, caught up with him a little bit, and just couldn't settle in one place. And it's all about opinions. If a new manager comes in, he doesn't like you, then you're on the bench for a while until then you leave. But he seems to be happy now and seems to be doing well.
But obviously, going into that first season in the Championship, the expectation was not to make the playoffs at all. Well, I remember going into that season thinking just stay up, and so I've been a bit not disappointed going into that season thinking, it's been great the last year, we're winning every single week, it's not going to be the same again. And then it just sort of was. Was there sort of a point where you start to think, we could actually do something this season?
I think, you're going away. I think I remember going away to Cardiff and, being 3-0 up after 20, 25 minutes and just thinking, this is an unbelievable team we have here. Just think everything we hit. With Jota, who came in, Judgy was scoring, worldly. Stewie Dallas was coming in. He came back from loan at Northampton and hit the ground running. Moses was playing right. Andre Gray was just a handful, scoring goals. And, we're going away to Nottingham Forest and we're brushing them aside. I know, as you say, it's Brentford, you know what I mean? This first year in the Championship shouldn't be happening really, but it did happen, and that's just because of the, I think the team spirit as well was excellent, and I think it showed on the pitch. So we knew that we had a good team. We didn't know we'd get to the playoff semi-final, but we knew we'd be in and around the playoffs, or maybe come up a little short. But I think as soon before the season went on, and just as I said, going away to Forest, beating them, going away to Cardiff and 3-0 up to them, and just doing it easily. Really, I just thought, we might have a squeak here.
I think the most asked question by far when we put this out was what happened with Jota. The whole situation was definitely the most asked question. Can we get a little bit of explanation behind that?
Just nothing. I just went to block the ball, and unfortunately his foot hit mine, and that was it.
Okay. We've also away a little bit from Brentford, but we wanted to talk to you about the whole Ivan Toney situation. I was just interested about what players get told before they sign their first professional contract about gambling regulations for players.
Well, when I first started, I think there was just you couldn't bet on anything that you were involved with. You couldn't bet in the league you're in, the FA Cup or the, I don't know what it's called now, Carabao Cup. You could bet in everything else. Basically, you could bet in, so say if I was in the Championship, you could bet in League 1 and League 2 games. Whereas a few years ago, it's come in now, it's just a blanket. You can't bet in any football whatsoever. So that's what you get told at the start of the season. Okay, a person comes in, whether it's from the PFA, the FA, and they come in and explain it to you. You can't bet in any football.
Yeah, okay. What have you kind of made of Brentford this season? What with Ivan Toney being so good? Have you been watching us quite a bit? Is there a vested interest, obviously?
Yeah. No, I still actually go and do some of the Bees play with Mark Burridge, so I'll get to watch a few games. They're going really well. To say that it's an upgrade from last year which you wouldn't expect, because they had a good season last year, but for this season to be in and around the European places is exceptional for Brentford, and I just think they have an all round good side, and it's a good club that's run really well, and I think it proves on the pitch.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, we were doing some research and we found your LinkedIn. You're currently doing a sporting directorship at UEL.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about
that? Yeah, I'm actually just finished that there. So it was a 2-year masters. So it's through the. So I was with actually Alan McCormick was on as well. So it was. It's just probably just. Obviously, I'm doing agency work now, and it's just I know most things about football on the pitch. It's just off the pitch that just trying to get some experience of that there. In the boardroom and speaking to owners and chairmen and different things like that there. And one day, who knows, that could be a role.
Is it the same one that Lee Dykes has done? Because I think
Lee Dykes was on. I think. Don't know if he started a year or 2 years before me, but he was on the same course, VSA once. It's it's a really good course with it's 2 years. Obviously, it's a tough 2 years to be honest, because obviously COVID and you're doing a lot of it online. You're not actually getting into classes, to say, which is up in Manchester. So myself and Mac could go up to Manchester and we'd have a night or two up there and go in the class. And as I say, it's just all trying to gain some experience of what's going to be hopefully in the future.
Would you say as well, obviously studying this for the last couple of years, it seems to be there's been a huge shift in terms of football analytics recently in the way that football's run, and obviously we seem to be at the forefront of that. Is there much of an emphasis on the tactical analytical side in terms of the way that we're doing it when you're studying these sorts of things? And obviously towards the end of your playing career, this seems to be where it really took off. At Brentford, did you notice like a shift towards the end of your time here?
Yeah, to be honest, I never heard of a sporting director before until I was at, obviously Mark Warburton was there. I'm not saying he was the first at Brentford, were the first, but that's the first of my knowledge from the clubs that I was at. And for my role, I wouldn't be doing the stuff that some of the Brentford people are doing. I'm too smart enough to realise that I'm not. That's not my strongest point. So obviously, like Brentford are employing the best people for the best jobs, and I think that's all part of being sporting directors. Getting the best people to do the best jobs and get the best team around you. And I think, to be honest, that's something that Brentford have done really well. You mentioned Lee Dykes there. You Phil Giles. and then you have 100 other people who's working now, and it's a bit different from when I was at Brentford. You have probably obviously the manager, a coach, fitness coach, 2 physios, a doctor, and that was it. And now you just have to look at the side of the pitch at Brentford, and there must be about 50 staff. So that's the way football's going, and that's the way it is.
I think we've got through all the questions that we wanted to ask you. So in the interest of time, we'll go on to the ones that we've got from people on the Griffin Park Grapevine. Randello asked, has the modern game moved on from a Douglas type enforcer in midfield?
Not really. I think there's always a part of a space for somebody like that. Casemiro's probably a good example. I'm not saying him anywhere as good as him, but I'm just saying is that type of ilk really. No, I think there's always, and I suppose Norgard now at Brentford similar. He's not a player that's easy in the eye, but you soon realise you miss him whenever he's not playing. That's how important he is, and that's how vital he is to Brentford. So he's no, I think there's always room.
He also asks, how important was it to have an Irish collective in the dressing room at Brentford when you were
there? I guess it is important to have people who obviously from back home they've experienced the same things as you have. You've moved away home from when you're a young age and stuff like that. You have the same interests. Gaelic football and hurling and stuff like that there. So it was important, and I think any club you go to, you tend to veer towards the Irish people just because it's it feels a little bit like home.
Yeah, we've definitely got a Danish contingent in our current squad. There's loads of them.
Definitely.
Gabs and James 30 ask, who was your favourite Brentford player to play with at Brentford, and who is your least favourite player to play with at Brentford, and why for both?
Best, I'd say James Tarkowski. I think was an excellent player. I think when he came in, his partnership along with him and Harley Dean, I think were solid, strong. Both of them like to play. Both of them, head it, kick it. They knew the basics. There was, to be fair, there's a lot. We mentioned Pritch as well. I think Judgy had a 12-month, 18-month where he was probably the best player in the championship. So I'd say that along them, the worst. I'd say George Saville was the worst, but not because of his footballing ability. It was probably because of just the nonsense he used to get off the pitch, whereas you just never knew if you're safe going into the dressing room. So I'd say he's the worst.
What kind of stuff was he doing?
No, I couldn't mention it. I couldn't mention this. Just you just have to be aware every time you enter the room with George, just what was about you. So yeah, I'd say George.
Okay. Jay Stance 92 asks, best game and or atmosphere you've ever played in?
Ever played in? Best games probably, I'd say the first game I played for Ireland against Wales at Croke Park. 82,000 people. First game in something like 90 to 100 years that a soccer game was played on a football, as we say, football pitch in Ireland, the Gaelic. So I'd say that's probably the biggest and best.
What about for Brentford?
Brentford, I'd say Preston at home when we got promoted, I think. You work hard all season to achieve something, and to finally achieve that, especially after the year before what we had with the the playoffs and losing the final. I just think that that was probably the best.
Aslan asks, your scoring record at Brentford was a lot better than any other clubs. Why do you think that was? I
was probably playing a little bit more advanced probably at Brentford, especially with Toombs sitting behind me, so I was able to get in the box more, and that was Uwe and Mark Warburton was always like, on to me, make sure get in the box. So especially when you have a player with Toombs quality behind you, so that's probably the reason.
If you could pick a goal out of the goals you scored for Brentford, which one was your favourite?
Which one was your favourite?
I remember a good one against Oldham at home. I don't know if you two remember it. The header, I think.
Yeah, I'd say Brighton. I think I scored a header against Brighton because two things was because I lost my man for their goal for a header, which was my mate Gordon Greer. He was playing for Brighton at the time, so I knew that I needed to redeem myself, and I scored in that game. And just because I think that was the first game my daughter went to, so Sam Saunders brought her along, so that's probably my best. Wasn't the prettiest. It's probably a free kick if you actually watch it back. It was surfing the boy's back, but who knows?
I think, just talking about your goals there, that for me, my favourite goal you scored for us, and again, not the best goal, but in terms of what it meant was the header against Crawley in that run up to the promotion. Because I think for me especially, that was a moment when we beat them 1-0. We were all over them that game and nothing was going in, and then you had your header and it sort of just crept under the keeper. For me, that was a moment I thought, we're going to go up this season. This definitely is going to happen now.
Yeah, they had a man sent off, did they? Early doors, Crawley.
Yeah, they did. And didn't have someone? There was like an altercation between one of the players hit one of our fans in the paddock.
I didn't know.
Right near the end. Yeah,
I just know what they had because the guy that got sent off was a mate of mine who lives in the same town as me back home. So I knew he got sent off. So yeah, I remember that game. I remember we were just banging on the door, and couldn't score. And luckily that my head trickled in.
BFC 1997 asks, how much did you enjoy playing with the Spanish trio of Tebar, Terral and Jota?
Jota on his day was very, very good. And to be fair, I didn't really play much with the other two. You could see in training technically very, very good, but I think John Terrell went on to, go to Birmingham as well and, do well and carve out a good career for himself. And I just think with Marcus, technically very, very good, probably just a little bit, what can I say, probably a little bit too nice maybe for the Championship and maybe League One, where you could get overran a little bit, but two of them were very good lads.
Yeah, John Terrell is one of my favourite players, to be fair. I think he's very underrated by Brentford fans. On his day, I reckon he was really, really good, top notch. Dynamite asks on the GPG, he says, if you could play one match for Brentford in the Premier League, who would it be against?
One match. Probably Manchester United and Old Trafford, and I scored a winner. It'd be nice.
And he also asks, how was it to suddenly have your former colleague Lee Carsley become your coach?
Well, Lee was my coach whenever I was getting the elbow from Brentford. Whenever he was under the B team, just I think the other manager's still there. What was his name? Was that Darkhouse, was it? Marnus, yeah, he was still there. So I had to train with the B team for a while, myself and Moses. So Lee Carsley, I played with him for Ireland, and still be in contact with him. He's doing well now with England, and hopefully one day he can be the Irish manager, which would be great.
We'll move on to the questions from Twitter. So Callum Maguire's got a pretty specific one that's got a lot of traction on Twitter. He asked, after the Stevenage loss back in October 2013, it was reported that Uwe Rosler locked the team in the dressing room, and the team didn't leave until 6:30 in the evening. The team then went on a 19-game unbeaten run that Jordan mentioned earlier. What was said in that dressing room?
Well, I'll tell you that it wasn't just what was said; it was what was thrown around and what hit people, and it was just one of those ones where he had every right. We didn't play really well. We were terrible that game, and he let us know about it. And as you say, it didn't do us any harm anyway. We went on a great run, but there was words said and things thrown about, and yeah.
Do you think kind of every football manager has that in them? Because for the life of me, I can't imagine Thomas Frank going into a dressing room at half time and fucking throwing things at people.
Well, you just never know. Thank God he's never had never been in that. Everything's going well for them. At Brentford, I don't think he's ever gone away to Stevenage and got beat. So, no, I think every manager has a switch. Yeah, definitely have a switch. You have to be mad to be a manager. To be honest, it's a high pressure job, and especially when you're in the Premier League and what's riding on it. Every point is worth millions. So it's every manager has a switch. Well, every manager I had a switch anyway.
What do you think it was that needed changing at that point in that season? Was it a bit of a hangover from the end of last season? Because we didn't start terribly, but then it was just really inconsistent. We lost home to Rotherham, home to Leyton Orient, then obviously that Stevenage game. What was it that needed changing?
Probably we just needed a a reminder of how good we are. You know what I mean? We've probably felt a little bit sorry for ourselves, as you say. We lost against teams where we shouldn't be losing against. Could have been a little bit of a hangover from the season before, but then we started okay. But just sometimes you just need a little bit of a kick up the backside, and there's nothing more to give you a kick up the backside than a cold Steve in his dressing room.
Nick on Twitter asked, in the memorable 2-1 win at home over Fulham in 2014, when the ref blew the full-time whistle as you chested it down teeing up a half volley, where the ball would have ended up if he'd continued for a few more seconds.
It'll probably still be coming down. 2-1. Look at if you're winning 2-1 and there's only a couple of minutes left, the worst thing in the world is to kick it into the keeper's hands so they can get an attack. So if it went in, the bonus. If it went over the stand, that's even probably better.
What were those games against Fulham like? When the 4-1 as well stands out as one of the standout results in our time as well.
Yeah, really good. We had a good side, and I think did we go 1 down against Fulham at home? Did we? I think so. Yeah. Harley scored, and then Jota scored. So we knew we had a good side. We knew that even if we do go 1-0 down against teams of that sort of class, and the players that they had, the Scott Parkers of the world, we knew that we could create chances and score goals. And lucky the big head Harley scored with his left foot in the top corner, and then obviously Jota scored. The away game was, I think we scored 3 of the best goals that season. And in that one game, Stewie scored a great goal, Jota had a good goal, Judgy had a free kick. I just think that everything we hit seemed to go in. And as I think I heard, there was 6,000 Brentford fans behind the goal as well, which wasn't the most cleverest thing from Fulham to do, but it backfired for them.
We got Ryan on Twitter asking, did you ever think Brentford would make the Premier League when you were playing for us? And if so, did you think that we'd be doing as well as we're doing now?
I knew they had it, especially when we got to the semi-final. I knew that if they kept the majority of that team and added a little bit more quality, that they had a chance. I think we just were centre forward short that year. With Andre Gray, who was battling his ass off every week, and I know we'd Scott Hogan, but Scotty, done his cruise shit and then done his cruise shit again, and we just didn't really have any help for Andre up front. And I think if we had, as people say, a plan B, we might have beat Middlesbrough or. I always knew they had an opportunity, especially since we were so lucky or unlucky.
You talk about the centre forward that season. Obviously, Chris Long did come in on loan for those last few months, but he never really. I think his goal scoring record was really good. It was about 4 and 12, but he never really seemed to get a decent run of games or start too often. Do you reckon? Because by the end of the season, Andre Gray looked like he was running on empty. Do you think maybe centre forward in January or maybe Long up top would have made a much of a difference?
Not really, no, because Andre was he was incredible. Like, as a manager, you just, you try and get your best players on the pitch. I know he probably was shattered, but if Andre gives you 45 minutes, 60 minutes of what he does, and he can destroy teams. So I just think if we had, I know Longy was good and he had the quality, but Scott Hogan's a different type of player, different qualities. Probably, obviously a better player because he's played at a higher level and he's still going. And I just think if we had those two, bouncing off one another, I think we could have went up.
We got John asking on Twitter. He wants to know how you came about signing for Brentford, and I think you touched on it at the start. You did have a couple of other options.
Yeah, I was actually leaving Swindon. The thing was that Swindon had an option. I get stick from Swindon fans saying that I left because they got relegated, but and they still give me stick when I was playing against them because they had the option on me to to sign a new contract, but they had it up until 28th of May and they let it run by the 28th of May. So, technically they didn't want me, so I could sign for somebody else. And I'd met a few other managers and I don't know who, I think Uwe maybe got in contact with me got a number for me of somebody and said, would you come down and meet, himself and Mark? And as I said, I went down to the hotel and went to the training ground and, kept speaking to them and what they thought. And what Matthew Benham had, what he was dreaming, and as he's proven, dreams become reality.
Were you as a group of players like close with the owner, or was it very much limited in terms of like the interactions you get with the?
Very, very limited. He'd come in the training ground the odd time and say hello and that there, but he just used to leave it to Uwe and Alan Kernahan was there at the time as well, and he just leave it to as I said, mentioned before, when you're sporting director, you know what I mean. You get people to do the best job, and you don't interfere. That's something that you're not as good as them at.
Okay. Kevin asks as our final question from Twitter, wants to know if you've ever worn anything other than black football boots, and said that him and his son, when they used to watch you play for Brentford, called you school shoes.
Probably slipping around like us in school shoes, all right. No, I used to. I was lucky enough whenever in the younger days I was getting given boots by Adidas or somebody like that there. So basically you had to wear whatever they sent you. So there would be an odd picture of me wearing white Preds, or I think the last ones I wear was white and yellow Preds maybe. But then since I think Swindon wore black boots, Brentford wore, so I'd say the last 8 or 9 years of my career was all black.
Cool. Finally, just some quick fire questions before we round off. I hope you've got a story thought of for the funniest Brentford story. But just before then, who would you say is your favourite player out of the current Brentford side?
I love Josh Silva. Love. As a midfielder myself, he just looks so comfortable. He's got everything. He can carry the ball. He can score. Lovely left foot. Strong. I like Josh. Yeah, I like Josh.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Thomas Frank?
I think he's brought a real togetherness with the fans and the players, and you just have to see what everybody speaks about him. I know he started out and it was a bit ropey at the start, but I think that's all down to Phil Jones and Matthew Benham, who probably another owner and another director of football might have got rid of him. It was a tough start for him, but he's doing really, really well, and I wouldn't be surprised if the bigger boys are sniffing around him. Who would you say would have been the best character on a night out from that squad of Brentford players that you were? Best character? There's a few. George Saville, definitely one. Will Gregg too. Scott Hogan probably with a couple of beers in him was good crack as well. Harley Dean's good fun. Harley Dean.
Finally, do you think Europe's on the cards this season?
Do I think? Sorry.
Europe
I do
is
think.
On the cards this season.
I think they've got a great opportunity for it. Whether the club would want that, because I think you look at clubs in the past that have had it, like Burnley and West Ham have struggles when they're in Europe. You still need that. I'd say 4 or 5 new players to to deal with the game. So I think they can do it. I'd just be afraid of what happens to the other clubs that it doesn't happen to Brentford.
Lovely, that's what we want to hear. Have you got a funniest Brentford story then for any of our listeners?
Funniest Brentford story?
But you can say.
I don't know if I can say too many in camera. I think the lads had a bet once, and I think it was Harley and Sons had a bet once, maybe, and Sons lost the bet, and he had to wash Harley's car and naked in the car park at the training ground. I think, yeah, but the other ones, I couldn't even say that. I couldn't do that to them. No chance.
I thought that might be the case, to be honest. Yeah, well, I think we'll round it off there, John. Thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate you taking the time. The Unaware podcast will be back following Everton next week. So yeah, stay tuned across our socials, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and we'll see you soon.